All right, in our last lesson, we talked about the benefit of staying in high school and graduating and the consequences of dropping out, and what that impacts in your life and what that impacts as a whole community and for the government. Okay, so let's talk about, for those of us who stay in school, which is going to be all of you, what happens after high school? Like, what are your choices? You could go to college and further your education. You could get a job by entering the workforce. You could join the military. You could volunteer. You could take a gap year in between high school and maybe college. There are just so many choices that you could do. You could start your own business. You have a lot of choices. In this lesson, we're primarily going to be talking about getting a job, entering the workforce. So let's look at that. How do you get a job? Well, there's a lot of steps. You need to dress nice, okay? You need to dress presentable. It's going to depend on what you're applying for, how you should dress. You want to dress for the job you are wanting to get, not the job you have, right? Dress for how you want to be perceived, not for how you are now. So always step it up a game. I've never heard of someone saying, I just didn't get this job because I dressed too nice for it. No, that does not happen. People are going to be impressed if you overdress versus thinking, ooh, she or he sure did not dress well enough for this interview. Right? So you need to dress nice. You can go to the place that you're working and say, hey, I'm looking for an application. Now, most places are going to tell you you can apply online. So you say, okay, my name's Laura Morgan. I just want to let you know that I'm going to be applying. Here's my contact information if you have any questions. And you apply. And then you should follow up, in a week or two. Call them up and say, hey, this is Laura Morgan. I applied here last week. I just following up to make sure you got my application and to see if you had any questions. That way you are putting your name in their brain again. They maybe saw you when you came, they saw your application, they saw you or got a message that you followed up, and they're like, all right, this person really is interested in this job. Okay? And then once they say, yep, you know what I did? You look great. Can you come in for an interview? Then yes, you can come in for an interview. You need to dress nice. Dress in something that you can be comfortable in, that you're not going to be fidgeting with. If you're not used to wearing a tie, practice wearing a tie so that you're not constantly adjusting it. If you're not used to wearing a skirt, then maybe wear nice pants. If you're not used to walking in heels, don't wear heels to your interview, okay? You never know how far away the person's office might be that you had to go interview. You don't want to be tripping down the hall, walking in your heels. Make sure you have something comfortable but nice that you will look professional in. You're not going on a date. You're trying to get a job. So make sure you are dressed professionally. Okay? And then you interview. It's always important to, when you walk into the room, they say you can sit down. They'll generally show you where to sit, and then you sit. Once they sit, you need to sit. It's very awkward if they're sitting and you're just standing there, okay? Make sure you sit down. They'll almost always say, oh, have a seat right here, or pull up a chair and let's talk. Okay, and they're going to ask you some questions. The best interviews are conversational. Now, sometimes the place you're working with has policies where it's they ask you a question, you answer. They ask you a question, you answer. And it's not conversational just because of policy, but from my experience, the best interviews are the ones that are very conversational. And they'll say, tell me about yourself. And you should tell them about yourself. And think about it. If someone says, tell me about yourself, you shouldn't be like, I'm in 10th grade. Crickets. That's kind of awkward, right? So have something to say, my name's Laura. I've been teaching for such and such years, and, I really enjoy reading and being outdoors, and I'm really excited about this opportunity. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but just something to break the ice. Then they'll ask you a series of questions, and you should always practice interview questions before an interview. Run through possible questions, what you would say them, practice saying them out loud, have someone pretend to interview you and give you feedback on your answers. Have some answers prepared. Put some thought into it. And then at the end, they usually say, all right, do you have any questions? Always have a question, because you want to show them that you're interested and you've thought about working for them. So the question can be, how do you see me fitting in here? at this place? Or what ways do you see this place needing improvement? And then that's really great, because if you're like, oh, I really like to do this, and then if that fits something you know or do or have experience with, you can say, oh yeah, at my last job, blah, 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 and I helped do this. And then, oh, this place wants to improve at, being better team focused, okay, or having better teamwork. Well, if that's something that you have lots of great experience with, show them that. So ask them a question at the end. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions? Do not ask them, well, how much money am I going to make? That's not an appropriate time to ask that question, right? You need to ask them questions like, how do you see me fitting in? What are your strengths as a business? What things does this business need to work on? Or how do you plan to, what changes do you plan to make in the next year, if any? Okay, ask those kinds of questions. Challenge them to think about it and reflect on their business as well. Okay, after your interview, you need to thank them, shake their hand. Please, please, please practice giving someone a handshake today. Give a strong handshake, look them in the eye. I cannot tell you how many times I've been at like an open house and I go to introduce myself and I shake the parent's hand, I shake the student's hand, I say, hey, I'm Miss Morgan, and I shake their hand, and then there's silence. That's your cue to say, I'm such and such. Okay, you came to that teacher's room. You obviously know that teacher's name. The teacher does not know your name, so that's when you say, I'm Johnny Appleseed. Okay, so good to meet you. So whenever you shake someone's hand, you introduce yourself. Hey, how are you doing? I'm so-and-so. Right, look them in the eye, shake their hand, and move on. Right, that's a very important step. It shows that you're comfortable. Even if you're not comfortable, fake it till you make it, okay? Pretend that you're confident until you believe that you are confident, okay? All right, then, after the interview, wait a week or two, follow up. Thank you so much for the opportunity to meet with you and talk with you. I really enjoyed meeting with you. Please let me know if you have questions. I look forward to hearing from you. And then sign your name. So you can send them a short email, leave them a short phone message. Just in a week or so, follow up with the interviewer to tell them thank you and let them know if they have questions. All right, so application. Let's back up a minute and talk about what an application looks like if you've never applied for a job. Basic questions at the beginning. It's going to say they're an equal opportunity educational institution or place of employment. They have to, by law, saying that they are not going to discriminate against anyone based on their race, gender, national or ethnic origin, disability, age, all that stuff. So places of employment cannot discriminate against you. And they'll have some kind of statement on their application about that. Okay, you'll have your name, your basic information like phone number, address, your social security number. They need this for like tax purposes. You should know your social security number by high school by heart. Should just be something you know, like the back of your hand. You need to know your social security number. You're going to have to put it on applications. You'll have to put it on college application, FAFSA if you're applying for financial aid. When you do your taxes, you just got to know your social security number. If you don't know it yet, you need to learn it. Make that your goal today. Memorize your social security number. Right? You should not be giving out your social security number to anyone. Don't be carrying it around in your pocket because you don't want someone to steal it, because that connects your identity to who you are, and also links to a lot of personal information through taxes and your citizenship and all that. So don't hand out your social security number to anybody. It's, confidential. Then I'll have questions like, are you even eligible to work? How old are you? They probably are asking that just because they need to know, like, if you're in school, if you are able to drive. They'll ask if you're currently employed, if you've been employed, if you have anyone at that business that you know. If you have to drive, do you have a valid driver's license, like for deliveries or something? They'll ask those questions. How did you hear about it? What your education level is? Did you graduate? Yes or no? Okay. And if you're in high school and you're filling this out, you can just say no and then put a little note here, expected to graduate June 2022 or whatever year you're expected to graduate. Put a comment. You're still in school. Okay, so let's look at types of jobs that you might get. Salaried positions are positions that you're going to get paid a set amount no matter how many hours you work. Your salary is how much you make in a year. So if you're making $35,000 a year, then it doesn't matter if you work 10 hours that week or if you work 80 hours that week, it doesn't matter. You are salaried. You get paid the same per year, regardless of how much you work. Your hours might be expected to be like 9 to 5 generally, but you're salaried, so you're getting paid the same amount per year. Your paycheck is based on your salary. An hourly job is one that gets paid a wage. You get paid a set amount per hour. So if you work 20 hours this week, you're going to make less than if you worked 40 hours this week, because you get paid based on how many hours you work. So a salaried position is based on a yearly salary that you're going to make no matter how much you work. An hourly position is how much you get paid per hour. Now, hourly positions, generally you get paid overtime. If you worked extra hours during the week, you get paid overtime, which is usually a higher amount than your normal hourly wage. So you've got salaries, which is by year. Wage is what you make per hour. Okay? So when we talk about minimum wage, $7.25 per hour. Okay. Commission is another type of job where you might make money based off your sales. So you might make a base wage, an hourly wage, or a base salary that's lower than you would expect, but then you get paid commission. So maybe you're selling cars, okay, and you get a cut of that car. Or you're selling houses, you get a 5% commission. So whatever you sell the house for, you get 5% of that. You're working as on commission, okay? So that would be added on to your salary or your wage or whatever you have. So commission is usually in addition to a lower salary or wage. You can work freelance, which is basically you work when you're needed. So like a journalist might be a freelance journalist. So you might not get paid anything unless they say, hey, we got a story for you. Can you write it? And then you're like, sure. And you write it and you charge them a set amount. Or like a babysitter, you're a freelance babysitter. You know, if they don't need you, you don't work, you don't get paid, and then they say, hey, I need your help, and you go and babysit, then you're getting paid. So that's like a freelance job. Then, of course, you could always work for yourself and hopefully make money. And then you're an entrepreneur, so that you're paying yourself based on your own business. Okay, these other ones, you're working for someone else, and they're paying you. Entrepreneur, you work for yourself. So these are just different kinds of jobs that you might get. You could have, there's a difference between job and career even. All right. A job, for example, is, something you might just be doing to make money. A career is usually something that you are doing long term, that you had certain levels of education. Maybe you got a license. Each state has different licensure requirements. So like state of North Carolina, you had to be a licensed doctor, a licensed teacher. Like I have a teaching license I have to maintain in order to keep teaching. You could be a licensed like cosmetologist, or you have to have a license to do hair in the state of North Carolina. So like depending on your job, you might have to have a license that says you're qualified to do that job. A licensed contractor, a licensed electrician. That just says the state is giving you permission to do that job because they deem you qualified. And generally speaking, if you're licensed or you've gone to school to be that, to have that job, then you're looking at a career. So careers typically long-term that you have education and training for, and probably you could have like a license. It's something you've been doing for a really long time. That's your career. A job is something that you're doing just temporarily to make money. So you could have like a high school job, you could have a summer job, you might have a job on top of your career. It just depends. But ultimately, what you need to know, what I want you to know, and what I want you to take away from this lesson, when it comes down to jobs and careers, no matter what it is, if you're doing freelance, if you're starting your own business, if you're working hourly or salaried or whatever, it is not just what you know. Like you do have to be qualified and you do have to have experience for some jobs. And so there is some level of what you know that is important, but it is really who you know. Every job I've ever gotten is because I knew someone. I had a contact there. Now, I didn't get the job because I knew someone. I got a job because I was qualified, but I also was able to connect with someone. Oh, yeah, I know so-and-so. And then you build a bond with that person because you know them and they're more likely to hire you. So if you're looking for a job, ask around. If you're saying like, I really want a job at, say, Chick-fil-A, okay, then ask around. Anybody know anyone who works at Chick-fil-A? Anyone know the owner of Chick-fil-A? I guarantee you that someone you know has connections with a job that you want. Okay, start there. Start there. Make connections, network, get to know people, and then it's a whole lot easier to get a job. Now, of course, you still have to dress nice. You still have to interview well. You still have to be qualified. You still have to meet the requirements for that job. So the what is important, because you're not going to get the job if you're not qualified. But a lot of people might be qualified. A lot of people might interview well. A lot of people might dress nice. A lot of people might make a good impression. But if you also know someone, you're more likely to get the job. So just remember that it's not just what you know, it's also who you know. Okay? And so I encourage you to ask around the community, ask your teachers, ask me, ask your parents, who do you know that's hiring? Okay? Or I really am looking for a position doing this. Ask around so that you can get help in getting a job.